Hello, good evening and welcome to News at 10 with me, Martin Asiedu-Dartey. Coming up, here are the major highlights for today. The Takwa police station has arrested 10 Chinese nationals suspected to be engaged in illegal mining. The 10 were caught in the act as they are sighted at Ifua in Noase, opposite Takwa Senior High School at Takwa Nsuayem Municipal Assembly in the Western region. Some workers of the Electoral Commission have pinned President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and the Chief Justice to begin impeachment processes against the chairperson, Madam Charlotte Osei. In the 6-page petition, the group which calls itself Concerned Staff, accused Madam Charlotte Osei of misconduct, citing breaches of some provisions of the Constitution regarding her office, conduct and duties. Meanwhile, solicitors for Madam Charlotte Osei, the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, have written to the Council of the Concerned Staff of the EC demanding that action be taken against the so-called concerned staff of the Commission who are demanding her impeachment. The West Africa Examination Council, WAEC, has withheld the entire results of candidates from 185 schools pending the conclusion of investigations into various cases of examination malpractices detected during and after the conduct of the examination. A statement from WAEC indicated the results of candidates from 31 schools were detected by the item differential profile software to have cheated in the objectives. So those are some of the major stories making headlines here in Ghana today. Time now for the big one. Thank you very much for staying with us. My name is Martin Asiedu-Dartey. Let's start from developments in the offices of the Electoral Commission. So the solicitors of Madam Charlotte Osei, the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, have written to the Council of the Concerned Staff of the Electoral Commission who are demanding that the action be taken against the so-called concerned staff of the Commission who are demanding Madam Charlotte Osei's impeachment. In the letter, the solicitors noted that the widespread publication given the petition in the mass media and social media by way of radio broadcasts and discussions, including comments in blatant violation of the confidentiality requirement of Article 146 of the 1992 Constitution, leaves little to be desired. The letter demands the full disclosure of the names of the so-called concerned staff of the Electoral Commission to enable Charlotte Osei commence legal action against them for the defamatory statements contained in their petition, failing which the EC boss will be constrained to proceed against counsel for the concerned staff, Maxwell Opoku Agyemang, alone. And I would want to speak to lawyer Maxwell Opoku Agyemang, counsel for the aggrieved workers of the Electoral Commission. Good evening, sir. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, good evening.
Have you received the letter that counsel for Madam Charlotte Osei and counsel for the Electoral Commission, for that matter, Thaddeus Sorry, is requiring you to at least state the names of the persons you are representing? Have you seen that letter?
Is it counsel for who?
Mr. Thaddeus Sorry.
As a counsel, yes, you mentioned the name, but it's counsel for who?
Madam Charlotte Osei.
Yeah, because I think I heard you saying Charlotte Osei and the Electoral Commission. I think you need to distinguish. We need to know whether it's counsel for the Commission, which is an entity on its own, or Charlotte Osei, who is a person.
Okay.
So that, yeah, we need to be sure because...
right, so the clarity is that he is counsel for Madam Charlotte Osei. Have you received the letter that is asking you to at least state the names of the persons you are representing?
Yeah, I'll answer you, but this point is very important to me.
Well noted,
making the distinction. That is, you read something, and I want to be sure that the person is representing who, is it Charlotte Osei or the commission? That's why I was asking this, because it's very, very important. We need to be sure who is representing. If it's representing Charlotte Osei and not the commission, that is fine. I have not received any such letter.
All right, so let's focus on the petition that the concerned staff of the EC have raised. What are the key findings key things they are seeking? Is this just for the lady in question to be impeached?
Let me be honest with you. I do not intend to have a media banter of a litigation or a petition that we have submitted. All I can say is that a petition has been submitted to the office of the president, not to the media. Of course, the media have found a way to receive it, which I don't know how, because it is not in my style to be submitting a petition to an office and then maybe sending it to the media. But be that as it may, I think this is a very important thing, and therefore you are interested in it. Let me say, I am not going to go into the details. All I know is that certain allegations have been made, and the petition has been submitted in accordance with Article 146.3 of our 1992 Constitution. And as soon as the appropriate body is constituted to look into the matter, we are ready to submit our evidence, and the parties involved will make themselves available to be heard, and therefore this matter will be tried in an appropriate forum.
And the concerns that have been raised against Madam Charlotte Osei, from what you gather, are there not issues that could be resolved internally, I mean within the powers of the Electoral Commission?
I think if that was possible, it could have been done a long time ago. So sometimes some of these things, certainly if it could have been resolved, I think that we all believe in reconciliation and arbitration, and therefore if matters could be resolved, I don't think we can prolong the matter to where we are. But I suspect it is not a matter that can just be resolved, because whatever it is, the appropriate bodies will look at it. I believe if the appropriate body is set up, the appropriate body is to determine whether there is a prima facie case or whether the petition is a frivolous one. And once that is determined, then we proceed. We are on the firm ground that we are not submitting a frivolous application. It's a very serious application and petition that we have submitted, which could not be resolved. And therefore, under the Constitution, those who are to help resolve the matter, the appropriate body that we have submitted to, and we are waiting patiently for them to deal with the matter. We have not submitted the petition to any other person but the office of the president, which is seized with the power under Article 146.3.
Okay. And so it is just the president you've petitioned. The Chief Justice has not received any petition yet from your outfit.
You cannot submit such petition to the Chief Justice. You submit
so it's just the president?
Okay. Yes, because that is what Article 146.3 provides. And it is in the prerogative and the wisdom of the president, after receiving it, to submit it to the Chief Justice. This is the procedure that is laid. So you don't submit multiple copies to anyone. To show respect, you have to send it only to the office of the president, and that is what we have done.
My final question to you, sir, is that Mr. Thaddeus Sorry, in his statement, is asking that you list or at least give him the names of the concerned staff. Is that something you are willing to do?
We have not sent any petition to Mr. Thaddeus Sorry, so I'm afraid. I think it's premature thing. We have not submitted any petition to him.
Right, but the persons you are counsel for are workers of the Electoral Commission, yes?
They are concerned staff of the Electoral Commission, yes, but we have not submitted
right, but then you are
anybody.
You are leading them for a particular reason, and they want a particular thing done, which is to impeach the Electoral Commission chair, Madam Charlotte Osei, because they believe they have concrete facts against her. And the concern here is, are you willing to let us know who these concerned staff are?
And I'm telling you, we have not submitted the petition to you. Neither have we submitted the petition to You have submitted the petition to the president.
The president.
And they will request, I hope you understand.
I do.
If they need the identities of these persons, which we have indicated in our letter, that we are prepared and willing to make them available with the relevant documents at the appropriate forum and the appropriate time.
Right.
We will do it. But we are not going to give in to this kind of, because we have not submitted. The president, if they demand and we refuse or fail to provide, that is where we have submitted the petition, they will dismiss the matter. But at the moment, they have not demanded it. And a third party, a total stranger to the process, now demands something from us. How can we do that?
We thank you for making time to speak with us, and wish you a good evening. We'll see how this particular story unfolds in the coming days. So we've been speaking with Maxwell Opoku-Agyeman. He is counsel for the concerned staff of the Electoral Commission who are seeking the removal of the Electoral Commission chair, Madam Charlotte Osei. Earlier, though, my colleague Alfred Okanse spoke to another legal brain to find out what processes that these concerned staff would have to go through if they really want to impeach the chair or an Article 71 office holder. So it is still fluid, an issue. We are waiting to hear what the government or President Nana Akufo-Addo will say, and I will keep you posted here on TV3. We'll be back with more. Stay with us. Thank you very much for staying with TV3. This is still news at 10. Let's shift our attention to some other stories. Now, the Minister for the Interior, Ambrose Derry, has expressed worry that 90% of weapons used to perpetrate crimes in the country are locally manufactured. The United Nations office in Ghana last month urged government to take urgent steps to deal with the proliferation of small arms and light weapons in the country. And I would want to speak to the chairperson of the International Network on Small Arms to see really what we as a country can do to stem the tide of the fact that small arms seem to be increasing in the hands of persons, most of them not registered. Good evening, Mr. Bafo Amoa, and thank you for joining us this evening.
Good evening.
I mean, there are many who have raised concerns similar to what the Interior Minister has done in the last few days. What is your particular take on the fact that in as much as we are campaigning against people wielding small arms or finding small arms, it seems to rather be increasing?
Well, I suppose three things account for this proliferation. The first one is that late 90s, we had a lot of civil wars in this region, and a lot of weapons were shipped to Liberia and Sierra Leone. The remnants of those weapons are still circulating in the region. Secondly, people also make attempts to smuggle weapons into the country. And we know that sometimes they hide it when they import cars, they hide it when they bring in goods. And thirdly, the most serious factor that I think as a nation we need to turn our attention to now is the local manufacture of these weapons. As the minister said, truly the police have confirmed that recent cases of arms violent incidents, certainly 80 to 90% of these weapons are locally made, which should be a cause for concern for all of us.
How do we deal with at least those that are locally made? Maybe those that are imported, we need to beef up our security checks at the borders, but those that are locally manufactured, how can we fix that?
Well, a number of ideas have been tossed around. One is that we need to provide alternative livelihood activities for our local artisans who are making these weapons, as the issue is economic one. They make money because they are willing buyers, and if they make it, they can sell it. But if we can convince them to do something else with their skills, like plow shirts, like hospital beds, like hospital screening equipment, yes, maybe we might be successful to reduce the proliferation and escalation of the local manufacture. And this idea that we are still working on. The other alternative we have is to actually get community leaders to be involved and to explain to them the current incidence of murder is rising, and it should be a concern for all of us.
And are these persons that can be, incorporated into, probably government can employ them, train them properly, so they rather manufacture weapons for the nation's security? Then we can keep an eye on how many is manufactured, where they are sent to, rather than trying to find alternative livelihood for them.
Well, in fact, that was the second idea I was coming to. Are we ready as a nation to set up an arms industry? Do we have what it takes to run an arms industry? Because if we don't set up properly, I think the situation will get even worse in a very short period of time. And so I think it behooves all of us to bring ideas as to how best we can integrate these artisans who are now capable of making sophisticated weapons like AK-47. We need to see whether we can really organize them and give them the necessary technical assistance and give them, resources to buy the proper materials, because we know that some of them are using exhaust pipe of cars and are causing trouble for themselves.
Thank you so much for making time to clarify some of these issues for us. The pleasure is ours. Bafo Amoa is the chair of the International Network on Small Arms. Thank you very much for making time to speak with us. This is still News at 10 on TV3. Let's shift our attention to some other stories this evening. And the Center for Indigenous Knowledge and Organizational Development and the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana want Ghana to explore organic farming. According to the two organizations, the use of hybrid needs and chemical fertilizers to increase yield are not sustainable.
The inception meeting was organized by the Center for Indigenous Knowledge and Organizational Development in collaboration with the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana. The two groups want to champion a campaign on sustainable farming while promoting good agroecological farming to enhance the country's food security. The stakeholders present are worried government Planting for Food and Jobs program would be a bane to the country, since all aspects of the program would not contribute to building soil fertility. They further hinted the use of hybrid seeds and chemical fertilizers to increase yields are not sustainable, hence the need to explore organic farming.
Right now it is challenging, and that is because government is not focusing on it. If government focuses on it like the way it's doing with chemical fertilizer, believe me, there will be a lot of organic fertilizer. Besides, we are looking at training the farmers to produce their own organic fertilizer.
I would want to say on this subject a while longer. We've been joined in studio by Bernard Guri. He's the Executive Director for the Center for Indigenous Knowledge and Organizational Development. So, the question is, you are asking for a more organic way of farming and that we should reduce the use of fertilizers because they have chemicals in there. How about those who argue that we need the fertilizers to increase yield? So normal organic process will give you maybe 10 bags, but using fertilizer you might get double that. How do you place this argument?
Thank you very much. I think we are not arguing that we don't need fertilizers. And mind you, fertilizer is not only chemical fertilizer. You have the organic and inorganic. Now what we are saying is that the inorganic fertilizers, though it definitely increase yields, is not sustainable because the inorganic fertilizers don't build the soil. They just introduce nutrients into the soil. But the soil structure has to be such that it retains the nutrients to be absorbed and used over a period. So first of all, they don't retain the nutrients much, And so we argue that there's another way. You can also use organic fertilizer, which also provides nutrients, but also builds the soil, and is therefore more sustainable, where it stays longer and makes the nutrients available over a longer period of time.
Are there particular crops that use or depend mostly on the inorganic types of fertilizer? And then, if yes, how do we ensure that these crops are able to still give us a lot more yield without necessarily depending on the chemical fertilizer, the inorganic fertilizer?
Well, of course, all crops need some fertilizer, they need nutrients. And both organic and inorganic provide these nutrients.
Okay.
What we're saying is that the nutrient, the organic one, is like working with nature to provide these nutrients. You bring in material, organic material that provide the nutrients that they need. Unlike the inorganic, where it's chemically produced artificially and introduced into the soil. And organic fertilizers are what farmers, small farmers, can produce themselves.
Okay.
And even it occurs in natural. For example, even the way you rotate your crops, the different types of crops can also help to improve the soil fertility in the soil.
Is this a campaign that would need government support or government backing? If yes, how are we to channel this campaign?
Yes, government definitely government support, and actually this government and other governments have been supporting it through the farm input support subsidy program,
okay,
whereby government subsidizes some inputs for farmers, basically mainly fertilizers, seed, and fertilizers and seeds are subsidized by farmers, and which is good, but subsidy is good because the idea is to reduce the cost of these inputs and to make them available to small farmers. The question we have with the subsidy is that the most profitable way to use this government subsidy? Could we not have made farmers benefit more by looking at this subsidy and widening the number of things that are being subsidized, and not just only fertilizers and seeds?
I mean, in preparing for this particular session, we spoke to a few farmers who raised concerns about the cost of organic fertilizers and then going the extremely organic way. How do you juxtapose this campaign and this call you're making against the cost of having to go, using the other forms of fertilizers? How do we put that in context?
That is one of the arguments we have, because the inorganic is definitely very expensive, so expensive that it has to be subsidized. And secondly, the inorganic fertilizers are all produced by corporate bodies like Monsanto and other chemical companies outside Ghana. And then this is brought in, that's why it's that expensive. The inorganic fertilizer, which is produced, for example, Accra Compost is producing compost commercially now, which is much, much, much cheaper and much more available and much better for the soil. And so we are arguing that, yes, let's have a subsidy, but let's subsidize more of the organic, which is more available and more appropriate and more sustainable to use.
How are you working with, you mentioned the Accra Compost Recycling Institution and what you get from them. How are you working with them, and have you been able to come to that agreement that we will use these materials you give us for our farming at a reduced price? Yeah,
we have to thank the peasant farmers because they did some advocacy, which has resulted in part of the subsidy being transferred to organic fertilizers now. So the organic fertilizers are being subsidized to the point that now I think a 45 kilo bag is just about 10 cedis, compared to about, I think, 50 cedis. I don't know the exact price.
A few months back.
Fertilizers, yes. So they've developed it and we have this. But the more important fact is that in terms of organic fertilizers, farmers can produce it themselves on the farm. It's a simple process that farmers have done this over years and have learned how to do it. And it's easier to teach farmers or to help farmers to produce their own fertilizer than to import chemical fertilizer. Okay,
my final question to you. You are with the Center for Indigenous Knowledge and Organizational Development, CICOD. What is your take on the fall armyworms that seem to be causing much devastation on our farmlands across the country?
Yeah, this is one of the issues we always argued against, that you see, our indigenous people, our farmers have knowledge. And I always argue that there are different kind of sciences.
Okay.
There is the Western science, but there's also a Ghanaian or a West or an African science, and our farmers have knowledge. The whole armyworm thing, if you find our local farmers, they will hardly go and only grow corn on a field. They will have corn on the same field. They might grow some okra, grow some cowpea and other crops. In that way, if even they have cowpea and armyworm infestation, it's not divided. It doesn't clear everything.
Yes,
the modern farmer talks about monocropping, where it's all large acreages of only maize.
Okay.
And when you have armyworm, it destroys everything. And that's why we are advocating an ecological approach, which brings a different mix of crops together on the same plot.
Thank you very much, Bernard Guri. He is the Executive Director for the Center for Indigenous Knowledge and Organizational Development. And we've been talking agriculture as the last major concept for News at 10 on TV3. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Martin Asiedu-Dartey. Do have a pleasant evening. Bye for now.